Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. I want to ask you a question right away. Have you ever felt the need to pull back, to just quietly step back from a woman you care about, not out of malice, but out of exhaustion, confusion maybe, even self-preservation, and then, as you slowly disappear into your own silence, you notice something curious? She didn't expect it, did she? She didn't see it coming. There is a moment when a woman realizes you're no longer running after her approval, no longer pouring your attention into every corner of her emotional landscape. And in that moment, the whole dynamic shifts. She starts to wonder, what happened? Where did he go? Why does this feel different? This video is for the man who's tried to please, who's shown up again and again only to feel unseen, misunderstood, or even dismissed. It's for the man who quietly thinks, maybe if I stop chasing, she will finally notice me in a way she never did before. So today, we are going to explore what really happens when you ignore her, why that silence speaks louder than 1,000 arguments, why your withdrawal might touch something deep in her psychology, and why she won't see it coming. Let's take a deep breath together and begin. So we've taken that breath together, and now let's settle into this space where we can talk honestly, not about game playing, not about manipulation, but about something far more subtle and powerful: emotional distance. When a man decides to withdraw his attention, especially from a woman who has grown used to being at the center of his gaze, something almost invisible happens first. You see, women, whether we admit it or not, we feel attention like light on our skin. When a man's attention is generous, consistent, devoted, it creates a field, a warmth. It might go unspoken, but it's there. In the check-ins, the text messages, the way you lean in even when the conversation is hard. When that warmth suddenly cools, when your energy begins to retract, it disturbs something primal. And I want you to understand this clearly. Most women don't expect that shift. Even the confident, self-sufficient, emotionally independent woman, part of her has quietly assumed you will always be there, emotionally available. She might not even realize she's made that assumption until you start to step away, not aggressively, not in anger, but in a quiet, subtle retreat. At first, she might dismiss it. He's just busy, she thinks. Maybe he's distracted. But over time, that absence starts to feel different. It starts to matter. She feels it in the moments where she would normally expect a response, and silence lingers instead. Why is this so powerful? Because ignoring her, and I mean this in the mature, self-possessed way, not in cruelty, speaks a language that touches her deeper than any argument could. It communicates that you are no longer centering her emotional experience above your own, that you are returning to yourself. This is where the real shift begins, because so many relationships unconsciously fall into patterns where one partner is pursuing, compensating, working harder while the other simply receives the effort as a given. The moment you step back, the entire emotional equation changes. And let's pause for a moment here. This isn't about withholding love or being cold. In fact, quite the opposite. It's about reclaiming your emotional space. You're saying, perhaps silently, I see that my endless availability has not created closeness, it's created complacency. And when that happens, pulling back becomes not punishment, but self-respect. Have you ever been in a situation where every message you send feels a little too heavy, every conversation feels like it requires too much effort, where you find yourself wondering why you are doing all the emotional labor while she seems emotionally absent or distant? That fatigue, that exhaustion, that is a sign that your attention has been spent too freely. Women respond deeply, even instinctively, to this recalibration. At first, she may not even notice it consciously, but she will feel it energetically. The way you are no longer chasing, no longer rushing to fill every silence, no longer proving your worth through relentless attention. And this is precisely why she won't see it coming. Because when a man who has been emotionally generous and attentive begins to ignore her in this way, calmly, confidently, without anger, it upends the entire dynamic she's grown used to. In this space, she begins to reflect. The absence of your attention forces her to meet herself. Why do I feel this emptiness now? What did I take for granted? Where is he emotionally? And that self-reflection is a powerful catalyst, sometimes painful, sometimes illuminating. But here's the delicate nuance. If you withdraw your attention with resentment or bitterness, it loses its power. She can feel that too. The key here is withdrawing with grace. You're not seeking revenge. You're not punishing. You're simply turning inward. You're tending to yourself. This kind of attention shift is an art. It's the art of giving without self-betrayals, and when giving becomes draining, you step back without shame. And I want you to know this isn't easy. For many men, pulling back feels unnatural. Maybe you were taught that being a good man means showing up endlessly, absorbing emotional storms, and never prioritizing your own emotional landscape. But that is not sustainable. When you ignore her, truly ignore, meaning you stop centering her feelings above your own, you begin to restore balance. And while she may not see it coming, she will feel it coming. The ground beneath her begins to shift. Now let's breathe here together. Let's sit with this idea that your silence, your withdrawal, your refusal to chase is not about creating distance, but about recovering dignity. As we sit in this moment, feeling what it means to step back with intention, we begin to see how ignoring her is not just a tactic, it's a turning point. So as we sit with this idea that your withdrawal isn't about rejection, but about returning to yourself, let's look deeper into what actually begins to happen inside her when you stop reaching. Stop chasing, stop filling the emotional space between you both. At first, she may not say much. Perhaps she even tells herself she prefers it this way, less tension, fewer demands on her energy. Maybe she thinks, finally, some space. But that initial relief is deceiving, because what we're really speaking about is an energetic bond, a connection that lives in the rhythm of attention and response. When you change your rhythm, the entire dance changes, whether she wants to admit it or not. You see, we all thrive on emotional patterns we've grown used to. When a man is always available, always attentive, that constancy becomes invisible like air. But the moment it's gone, she notices the absence more than she ever noticed the presence. It's often only when that familiar energy pulls away that she starts to recognize what it was actually providing. Here's where things get psychologically interesting. Many women, even strong, independent women, equate a man's attention with affirmation of worth. It's not necessarily conscious, but it's there. Your availability confirms something for her about her desirability, her importance, her influence. When that attention fades, it doesn't just create curiosity, it creates discomfort. And in that discomfort, her mind begins to seek explanations. She may start to ask herself, did something change? Was it something I did? Why do I feel unsettled? This inquiry is powerful because before she may have felt fully in control of the relationship's emotional tempo, but your silence interrupts that illusion. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean she will automatically rush back toward you with open arms. No, it depends on many factors, including the depth of her own feelings, her readiness for emotional connection, and her self-awareness. However, the impact is undeniable. When you ignore her in this intentional, quiet way, she begins to feel your absence as a presence. And that paradox is where the shift begins. I want you to think about this practically too. Ignoring her doesn't mean stonewalling her or playing cold games. It means you reclaim your time, your focus, your emotional investment. When you stop initiating, when you stop double texting, when you stop rearranging your world to accommodate her mood, you signal a profound message. I respect myself enough to stop overextending for someone who doesn't reciprocate with the same care and attention. This shift also invites her to reconsider her role in this dynamic. Before, she may have felt that your effort was endless, that she didn't need to nurture the connection because you were doing it for both of you. But now your withdrawal quietly asks, what do you bring to this relationship? How do you show up? It forces a reckoning not because you're demanding anything, but precisely because you've stopped demanding. And it's so important that you hold this posture not with anger or bitterness, but with dignity. Because women are incredibly perceptive, they will feel if your withdrawal is bitter, and that will push them further away. But if your silence is calm, centered, confident, it becomes magnetic. Imagine this. You stop responding immediately to her texts, not to punish, but because you're busy living. You stop checking her social media stories to track her emotional weather. You stop seeking reassurance through her reactions. Instead, you begin cultivating your own life again, reconnecting with your friends, diving into your work, nurturing your passions. This is attractive in the truest sense of the word. It pulls her attention back toward you, but not because you're performing. Rather, because you're demonstrating self-possession, that deeply attractive quality where you are at peace with yourself, whether or not she responds. And all of this leads to an emotional paradox she may not be prepared for. The very absence of your attention makes her pay attention. Where once she felt your emotional availability was endless, she now feels your focus is fine, precious, and no longer guaranteed. And that realization can hit her harder than any words you could say. Now, I want you to reflect for a moment. This isn't just about what happens inside her. This is about what happens inside you. The decision to ignore, to step back, is also an invitation to yourself to heal, to reassess your own needs and boundaries. It creates space for you to consider, is this relationship serving me? Am I respected here? Am I seen here, truly seen? Because ultimately, this isn't about making her chase you. It's about ending a dynamic where you've been chasing validation through her attention and starting to embody self-respect. This is the silent power of ignoring her. It forces both of you to meet yourselves again. For her, it shines a light on what she may have taken for granted. For you, it reminds you that your energy is precious, that your time is valuable, and that you deserve reciprocity, not just availability. So let's pause here, breathe, and feel into that space you're reclaiming. And as you sit quietly in this space you've reclaimed, something profound begins to unfold. You're no longer performing the role you thought you had to play, the reliable one, the ever-present one, the one always anticipating her needs before she even voiced them. Instead, you are observing, you are watching how the absence of your attention exposes truths that might have been hidden when your energy filled every silence. There is a strange liberation in this, isn't there? The realization that you are no longer responsible for managing her emotions, for decoding every subtle signal, for holding up both ends of the connection all by yourself. You are no longer tethered to the exhausting dance of making sure she feels comfortable, seen, understood, while your own feelings quietly erode in the background. And in this silence, her mind is working overtime. She may begin to ask herself, was I too distant? Was I cold? Did I assume too much? This self-inquiry is where transformation begins, because for many women, your constant presence was like a safety net. But now that net is no longer beneath her, she has to stand on her own emotional feet. What's so fascinating about this process is how natural and human it is. We all at times get used to a dynamic that serves us without realizing we're even benefiting from it. When you stop offering your attention so freely, you reveal to her what she may have never questioned, how deeply she relied on your emotional investment. This is why ignoring her isn't about hurting her, it's about giving her the space to recognize what she actually valued, but perhaps didn't express. She may have thought she didn't need your attention until it was no longer being offered without question. And here's something else you need to know. Not all women will meet this moment gracefully. Some will feel threatened by your withdrawal. Others will lash out or accuse you of being distant or cold. You may hear things like, "Why are you so different?" or "You used to care more," and when that happens, it's important that you stay grounded in your why. You are not withdrawing to punish, you are not playing games, you are reclaiming balance. If she responds with frustration, let her. You don't have to defend yourself or explain every choice. The power lies in your calm detachment, a steady presence that says, "I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it, and I'm at peace with that." This is where true masculine strength resides. Not in aggression, but in clarity. Not in force, but in calm boundaries. And these boundaries invite her, if she is willing, to meet you on equal emotional ground, rather than stand above you while you do all the emotional labor. This is the invitation your silence creates, an opportunity for her to reflect, and if she chooses, to respond with genuine presence rather than assumption. But let's turn the mirror back toward you again, because this whole experience isn't just about her awakening. It's about your own growth too. This is your moment to ask, what did I tolerate in this relationship that didn't feel good to me? Where did I abandon myself to keep this dynamic alive? The truth is, many men unconsciously enter a pattern of overgiving because they are afraid that if they stop, the relationship will fall apart, and what that fear reveals is that the relationship was never balanced to begin with. If your silence causes her to drift away permanently, you didn't lose something solid, you revealed something fragile. This clarity is a gift. It allows you to see not just her more clearly, but yourself. You realize that by stepping back, you've created the space for genuine connection, or you've exposed the absence of it. And here's what might surprise you most. When you withdraw with grace and confidence, you become more attractive than ever before. Not because you're manipulating, but because self-possession is magnetic. A man who no longer gives his attention as a transaction, who is content within himself, who moves through life on his own terms, becomes a man women pay attention to. This shift in your posture from seeking approval to embodying self-respect is the very thing that makes a woman stop and reconsider. She may begin to approach you differently. Her tone may soften, her curiosity may deepen, her willingness to meet you emotionally may return. But whether she comes back or not is no longer the point. The point is that you've restored balance, dignity, and self-respect. You've exited a pattern of overinvestment and returned home to yourself. So, as we arrive here together, I want you to feel that shift in your body. The lightness that comes when you realize you no longer have to fight for validation. The peace that emerges when you see that your attention is a precious resource and you get to choose where to give it. Let's breathe into that, stay with it, and know that this shift is not a strategy for short-term gain, but a profound change in how you relate, love, and lead. So here we are together at this final place in the journey where you've reclaimed your space, where you've stopped chasing, and where your silence has created a profound shift. But now comes perhaps the most important part. What do you do next? How do you carry yourself when she begins to feel that absence, when she starts returning, when she reaches back toward you with questions, curiosity, maybe even affection? You see, this is the moment many men struggle with, because after stepping back, the temptation is to rush back in at the first sign that she notices. A text, a gentle check-in, a sudden softness in her voice, and part of you may want to leap at that, to believe, she's changed. She finally sees me. But this is where wisdom is required. It's not about resisting her or withholding warmth forever. It's about discerning, has she truly seen me, or is she simply reacting to the absence of attention? Because if you rush back in too quickly, you risk returning to the very dynamic you worked so hard to disrupt. You risk re-establishing the pattern where your value is measured only by your availability, where your presence is expected but not appreciated. So, what do? You stay grounded, you move slowly, you observe her response with curiosity rather than desperation. When she reaches out, you don't close the door, but you don't fling it wide open either. You let her show you who she is in this new space you've created. And this is where your own emotional self-awareness becomes your compass. You ask yourself gently but firmly, how do I want to feel in this relationship? Am I being met with the same energy, care, and presence I offer? By ignoring her in the healthiest sense of the word, you have given both of you a chance to reset. But whether that reset leads back into connection or reveals that your paths must diverge depends on what she brings back to the table. And this, my dear listener, is true freedom. Not freedom from love or connection or vulnerability, but freedom from patterns that drain you, from dynamics where you give endlessly and receive little in return. Freedom from needing to be the only one holding emotional responsibility. There's a dignity in this posture. It's the dignity of a man who values his emotional energy, who knows that love must be mutual, not coerced, not begged for, not chased, but offered freely from both sides. And in this dignity, something magical happens. Whether she returns to you or not, you become someone different. Stronger, calmer, more self-possessed, you move through life with a quiet confidence, no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of earning affection or proving your worth. This change radiates outward beyond this one relationship. It shapes how you relate to all women, how you hold your presence with friends, colleagues, future lovers. You stop overextending. You stop giving out of a place of insecurity, and you start giving from overflow, from fullness. So let's feel into that right now. The man you are becoming is a man who is deeply rooted, emotionally available but never self-sacrificing, warm but not desperate, attentive but discerning. You hold yourself with grace. You allow women to come to you, to choose you freely, and you also allow them to leave, knowing you will not collapse without their validation. And if she does come back, if she begins to offer you genuine presence, emotional reciprocity, tenderness, then you meet her there. You meet her not as a man desperate for her attention, but as a man whole unto himself, ready to engage as equals. This is what it means to embody masculine presence. This is what happens when you ignore her, not with cruelty, but with clarity. You become a man who cannot be manipulated by attention, who cannot be baited into endless pursuit, who knows his worth without needing constant affirmation. And even if she never returns, even if your withdrawal reveals that this relationship was never meant to go further, you will have gained something priceless, self-respect, a deeper understanding of who you are, what you need, and what you deserve. So as we close this conversation together, I want you to hold this truth gently in your heart. When you ignore her, when you stop centering her emotions above your own, you begin a journey back to yourself. You create space for reflection, for balance, for dignity. And whether she joins you in that space or not is secondary, because your peace, your wholeness, your sense of self, these are now rooted in you, not in her response. Thank you for spending this time with me here at the Intimacy Lab. If this spoke to you, I invite you to share your own reflections below. Your journey matters, your story matters, and you never know who might need to hear your truth. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because together we are exploring what it means to love deeply, live fully, and relate from a place of strength and self-respect. Here's to you, to your journey, and to the power that comes from reclaiming your emotional energy.